And then everybody says to me, oh, water's our most limiting factor. And then I go, well, hold your breath till lunchtime or dinner time and see what's the most limiting factor in your life. So if you've got compacted soil, you can't get air in there. And the poor old microbes in there gasping, and he cannot live, he cannot thrive unless we can get that structure right. So we can get that gas exchange, get the air into the soil and make everything work. And then also the water infiltration and the water holding capacity. And if we don't have that structure, it ain't happening.
The Biological Farming Roundtable podcast helps farmers explore innovative, low-input, regenerative and profitable farming systems. The Biological Farming Roundtable is sponsored by Nutrisoil, an award-winning biological liquid fertiliser made from a big worm farm. Nutrisoil's purpose is to empower farmers to produce life-enriching food. My name is Nakala. I work at Nutrisoil. I envisage a future where farmers are rewarded for producing nutrient-rich foods and consumers have this easily available to them. Hello everyone, Nakala here from Nutrisoil. Today I am interviewing or having a conversation with Luke Harrington from Regen Farming. Luke has been with Regen Farming, or is Regen Farming. He is the founder of Regen Farming and has been operating for around 20 years. He is involved in selling biostimulants, microbes, amendments, nutrients, but also showing people how to make their own. So he has an educational side to his business as well as the advisory side and providing those biological regenerative type of products to farmers. So welcome to the show, Luke.
Thanks, Nakala. Thanks for having me on. And here's hoping we can have a great discussion.
Yes. Now, I think at the beginning of the discussion, we should let people know that we are actually related. We are brother and sister. So interesting, we've landed in the same industry. I always joke that you were worm farming before I even met Darren, who has the worm farm business. So, it's funny how fate lands you in different places.
Yeah, it is. We were only talking about it the other night. We've been growing worms since I was 19 years old. So I'm now 56, so a while. And that's sort of what drove me down this path. Just by seeing what happens with that sort of thing.
I love that. And I love that you're so knowledgeable and you believe in the worm product so much. That's why we work so closely together at Nutrisoil. What I wanted to talk about today was it's the whole package, like the holistic way that you farm regeneratively, if you want to use that word, or how you farm so that you are producing good yield and you are regenerating your soil and the food is nutrient rich and low in chemical. I think that's probably the best way to put it. Would you have anything else to add to that, Luke? Or
yeah, I think the other thing that is really important with farming this way is it regenerates your farming family and the farming community. They're probably the two things that drive me the most.
Yeah, absolutely. If we don't have farming families and farming communities, we're going to lose the personal touch of farming, the holistic part of farming. It has that risk of becoming very transactional and all of the parts sometimes can get dropped out. So the holistic side is the concern for it. So it might be more that farming is very much profit driven. So we want to make sure that farming is for people with the land.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, if we don't make a profit, that's not going to help our communities in any way, shape or form.
No. And that's what we need to talk about today as well, is that biological farming is profitable. And I often hear you say you should not drop yield, but it also is not no input farming. So let's have a talk about that. Could you tell me the difference between a biological product, which would be a biological stimulant, or a microbial product, or a nutrient? What's the difference between these?
Yeah, I think this is a really important thing to touch on. The A lot of people don't realize they are different things. So a biological product actually has biology in it. Like Nutrisoil is a biological product. It's got biology in it. And then you've got your biostimulants, which are, let's say, something like a plant extract, like TM Agriculture or an FPJ from Korean Natural Farming, wood vinegar, those things. They don't actually have any biology in them, or they'll have some in there, but they're not a biological product. So you can't call them that. Unfortunately, the way our system works with labeling, a lot of products get called biological. And then you've got so they're the biostimulants, and then you've got your fertilizers that actually have nutrition in them. And so that might be an NPK trace element style fert, which is conventional, but you use it as a foliar or guano or something like that. Guano liquid, they're more fertilizers. So that's how I look at it. And I just think people get a little confused when we say everything's a biological product.
Absolutely. I think I get confused as well. So when you talk about Nutrisoil, it has biology in it, but it also has enzymes, hormones, fulvics, humics in it. And it has nutrients in it, but they're all in this complex form, where you could say it's low amounts, but it's complex, so it's more powerful. Tell me about the plant extracts. What type of, I guess, stimulants are in them?
So this is something that's not really that well tested, to be honest. But like I do a thing called an FPJ, and it's a fermented plant juice. And once again, you get your enzymes in it, you get your minerals in it, you get some biology in it, peptides, amino acids, all the same sort of things that probably Nutrisoil have got, but they've come from the plant. And I know that there's a plant product in the country that they're getting really well tested over in the States, and it's got something like 200 different peptides and all the aminos and that sort of thing. So not so much a nutrient and not a biological, but just a plant extract, and that just feeds the biology in your soil, and they enhance something like Nutrisoil incredibly. So.
Yeah, I would think that a plant extract would have plant hormones in it. And plant hormones are your things like your auxins, your gibberellins, like your gibberellic acid,
Yeah.
your abscisic acid. And these are all things that help plants grow. They help them with senescence, when to go into senescence. They help them with stress. They help them to regulate things. So it's not about pushing lots of hormones into a plant. It's about having balanced hormones, just like us humans. But those hormones are also, they can be signaling products as well. So you could say there's hormones and signaling products. I think there's other signaling products, which would be your peptides and things like that create metabolites. But again, a worm liquid has those in there as well. And I imagine your plant extract, it must have microbes in it too. Like we come into this sort of hazy area where, yes, it does, but do you call it a microbial or do you call it a biostimulant?
So from my point of view, I'll call it a biostimulant because that's its job in life. Everything's got microbes in it. Like even your urea has a microbe on it of some description, but that's not its main game. So, and is it the microbe that we want as well? So, I'm going to call it a biostimulant or even a plant food as well, because it's the thing with plant extracts is they're made by a plant for a plant, and that's why they work so well. And that's why they work so well with Nutrisoil as well, I think. And Nutrisoil, everything that goes through the worm has probably come from a plant.
Or an animal. Yeah, you're right. Yep. Anything living. So everything is about consuming something living
Yeah,
and then just processing that back into life again, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, for
Mm,
sure. And just getting that recycling going on,
yeah,
getting the cycle of everything working efficiently.
yeah. So I think this comes down to what's on the labeling of these products to really understand what each of them are. And then even when we start to measure microbes, there's so many limitations. I don't think that there is one microbial test that will tell you everything. Everything has its limitations. So DNA testing, it will tell you all the different species that are in there, but it won't tell you the absolute abundance. It'll tell you the percentage per gram of microbes that are in there, and its functions as well. So I think DNA testing is amazing.
Yeah.
It's probably the best testing out of all of them, but you can't do that alone. So then
Yes.
we look at plate counts, and plate counts we've been relying on for so long. They're great, but 95% of microbes cannot be cultured in a lab. So you're missing out on so many microbes not coming up in that plate testing because they can't be cultured. And that's where these natural products, they still can't totally be defined because some of those microbes we have no idea. Like Nutrisoil has 40% of microbes that just haven't been cultured, so they can't identify them. And then even microbial testing, when you put a liquid under a microscope, we still struggle with that. I mean, you do some microbial work, Luke, and I know you only do it sometimes. But how are you finding working with a microscope?
It's not something that I'm highly skilled at, but I am trying to get better. But yeah, I find in our soils everything seems to be very. There doesn't seem to be a lot of diversity with the microscope work I do. I find a lot of bacteria, not a lot of fungi. Like I might look at something for an hour before I'll find a bit of fungi, which is a bit sad, really. So,
Well, I think microscope work, it is really hard to find the fungi and those strands. You get really excited when you see them come across, and the spores you can see as well. But it can be the person that's operating the microscope. Have they got the skills to do it? Have they got the high resolution of the microscope? Sometimes using oil, you can see the microbes with more clarity. And if you've messed up that slide and you've put too much water on there, it's not going to work. Like there's definitely limitations in microscope work as well. So we've got DNA testing, microscopy, and then you've got plate testing. But then we've got these enzyme analysis tests, which are good. So they're looking for things like your hormones, like your abscisic acid and your phosphatases. Have you had any of those enzyme tests done or know of them done on any of the products that you're involved in, Luke?
no, I haven't myself because I'm a one-man band and I don't have a lot of cash to put towards these things. Well, I suppose if you ask my wife and when she gets a bill at the end of the year for I don't know $15,000 or $20,000, she probably thinks that I've probably spent too much money. But anyway, that's what it is. So I'm mainly testing for nutrients and biology is the main tests I get done. And yeah, whereas Nutrisoil, you guys have done a lot more than what we've done.
Yeah, and I mean we are a company, so we probably have the funds to do that. Um, And we can actually we get a lot of, research grants as well from the government, tax incentives to do research. So but you're right, the enzyme analysis, I think one year we spent $20,000 on it. So it's expensive testing. DNA testing for us is $1,000 a pop. But it's good to see that those enzymes are in there. And things that we've found is that when you apply Nutrisoil, there's more phosphatases in there. And we know that those phosphatases come from microbes and they're helping to dissolve phosphorus from the plant. And we know that there's abscisic acid. So when we do tests with plants that are treated with Nutrisoil or without Nutrisoil, the ones who have been planted with Nutrisoil have less abscisic acid, which is a hormone that a plant releases when they're stressed. So it's saying that the plants are less stressed, so they can deal with drought and they can deal with flood. But the nutrient testing, you've done some really interesting nutrient testing on weeds.
Yes. So every time I make a new form of FPJ, which is the fermented plant juice, and we will send that off to EAL and just get it tested for nutrition. And it's got everything in it. And I would love to probably go a bit further and test it for more things. And we've also tested some of our stuff for amino acids as well. So, and that wasn't the cheapest thing to do, but it was really interesting. And so, and different weeds have different makeups, which is even more interesting. So once you learn what weed has, say, more potassium or more calcium or whatever, you could actually probably make a fertilizer and build it together with the different weeds that achieve different things. So I find it really it really eats up a lot of my time because I find it really interesting, and I'm always playing around with it. So and it's something I would love to do more, see more farmers doing, because it's such a cheap thing to do on your farm and it can make such a difference.
Yeah, tell us about the KNF. How do you make it?
So KNF is pretty simple. It's mainly ferments, and there's also a thing in it called an IMO, an indigenous microorganism. So you harvest that IMO, that indigenous microorganism, from a really productive part of your farm or a forest or something like that, and then you mix that 50-50 with raw sugar, and you harvest it with rice, half-cooked rice, basically, and then you mix that 50-50 with raw sugar, and that puts it to sleep until such time as you want to do the next section, and then you'll go out and you will make what they call IMO3, which you get, say, some spent grain or wood chips or whatever, and then you culture onto it. I actually use Nutrisoil or worm juice as to mix it all in, and then I mix it all in the grain or the wood chips or whatever I've got, and then that grows the biology out even more. And when we sent that off to the lab, it came back 500 times more beneficial than a normal commercially made compost, which was pretty amazing. And then
what was that 500 times? Was it the nutrient? Was it the microbes? Was it?
It was most things. It was the microbes. We only had certain microbes in it. We didn't have any microbes that relied upon plants, like plant hosting, but all the rest of them were really high, and the nutrients were out of the ballpark compared to a normal compost. And it's really good to make a extract with. So you put it, like when people make an extract with your castings, you'd throw some of this in there every day of the week, and it generally makes a more fungally dominated extract, which is really important.
Yeah, when you're talking about non-plant microbes, I was thinking they must be more microbes that decay things, which is fungi. So that's why it might be highly fungal dominant.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yep. Go ahead.
well, the extracts, they aren't as high in everything because you're adding it with water, but they're a building block, aren't they? So let's talk about the building blocks of how you put together all of these things. So you've got and a KNF, would you call it a biostimulant or would you call it a microbial product?
So in KNF, there's biostimulants. There are the IMOs, a microbial product, and then there's a nutrition side of it as well. So there's sort of the whole gamut is there, and it's not that difficult when you think about how a plant grows to when you do things. So
That's so interesting because it's an ancient recipe, isn't it? Like it's something that they've been doing for many years. What country did it come from?
So they call it Korean natural farming, but really it should just be called natural farming. What happened, there was a fella by the name of Master Cho who went out through Asia, India, and just found all these techniques and brought them together and put them into a system. And because he was Korean, they called it Korean natural farming. So these things have been around. He did that in the 60s and he only passed away, I don't know, 6 or 7 months ago, to be honest. So he put that together in the 60s, but these techniques have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years, used right through Asia and India and those sorts of places. So, and work quite well.
The real traditional places. But what really sparked my interest there is that in KNF, you've got like the suite of KNF, I guess you'll call it, the recipes in it. You've got a microbial product, you've got a biostimulant, and you've got a nutrient product.
Yes.
And I imagine that they would be encouraged to all be put together.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, so if you are looking at, say, growing your vegetable garden or a crop or something like that, what you would do, and you can do this with commercial products as well, and KNF, but you stimulate the biology that's already there. Then we add biology as a seed treatment, and we'll put a bit of nutrition with that. So you've got your FPJ or an FA and an FAA, which are fish amino acids, and your fermented plant juice. You put that together with a over in Asia, they use brown rice vinegar, homemade brown rice vinegar, which is more your biostimulant for the situation. But the plant extract is also a biostimulant. So, but it's also got food in it. So, and then after your plants come out, and the other thing is you might put some IMO out, some actual solid indigenous microorganisms that, like the compost itself, you might put that out. And then each time you do a foliar spray, and it doesn't matter whether you're doing Korean natural farming or conventional farming, the key to making a foliar spray work is to have microbes in it. So that's why when you put an NPK trace element foliar fert out with Nutrisoil, it just always works better. Every day of the week, it'll work better.
That's great. Like I love that they're using all of those different things together because now I want to have a conversation. You know, what does a farmer use in what situation, and do they always work? So you go out, you advise on farms a lot, Luke. If it was a cropping system, what
Yep.
would be, I guess each system is different, but what would be the flavor of what you would normally recommend?
So the first thing I would recommend is you still need to worry about your minerals in your soil. Your calcium and your phosphorus are probably the two that I would target first. And if you've got those two right, the biology will work better. It'll help with your soil structure, but stimulate that native biology that's there. That would be the first thing I would do. I'd try and fix up my my minerals a little bit, and then I would stimulate the biology, and then I would do a seed treatment. Anytime you sow a crop, always put a good quality seed treatment on. Put biology on it. I always use Nutrisoil. I always put a plant extract on it, whether that be FPJ or TM. And the FPJ sort of covers that nutrient, and the TM has a bit of nutrient in it as well. And then if I know that I've got a heap of phosphorus tied up in my soil, or I'm struggling to get phosphorus, I might put specific biology in there for that. So let's put biology in there specifically for getting phosphorus or breaking it down calcium or whatever that might be. So that would be my first steps, and then
All
every
right,
time.
I'm
Sorry.
gonna I'm just gonna stop you at the first step because there was so much in that. I just want to pull that apart.
Yep.
So going back at the start, you wanted to look at the nutrients in your soil, and you talked about phosphorus and calcium. Is that for soil structure? Is that for nutrient availability? Is that for the microbial population? Like, why those two? And do you look at things like acidity or high magnesium or those types of sort of major soil constraints there when you're looking at those soil tests initially?
Yep. I do look at the soil constraints. I always try and go out and do a physical look at the soil as well, like go and do a visual soil health assessment to see what the structure and everything's like. So that's very important. But I think when a plant grows, and God's made a plant amazing, like the dreadlocks that you'll see around that root system are so close to being perfect for that plant, because the plant has put out exudates that draw in different bits of biology to create the perfect environment for it. So I call those dreadlocks the castle wall. And that castle wall has the policeman in there, it has the ambos in there, it has the counsellor in there, you name it, it's living in there, and it's keeping the bad guys out for you, and it's making that perfect environment for the plant. And I think that is the most important part of what we are trying to do, and
Yeah.
getting the plant nice and healthy so I can keep pushing the exudates out to get the biology that it needs.
So you're saying you're going to look at the soil tests, but first you're going to look at those, or at the same time to make the decision, you're going to look at the root systems. Because what you're saying is, even though the soil test might be really acidic, or it might be sodic, or high in magnesium, those root systems might be happily growing through there. They might not be as well.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. Yep. And that will come down to more of a biological problem. Like, we know all about nutrition. We know about what elements to put out to make things happen. Well, we know most things, but we know so little about what does what in the biological world, unfortunately. We probably put more money into going to Mars than we do into growing food for ourselves, which is a bit of a shame. But what we find is, if we can get that biological system working, it covers a lot of those other problems.
Mm-hmm. And then I imagine compaction is going to be something that could stop that biological system working. So that's another reason you're digging up those root systems and then looking at the soil tests at the same time.
Yep, absolutely. At the end of the day, I always say to people, what are the two most important things for life? And what would your answer be for that?
Oh,
Air, water?
I'll keep my work hat on. Air and water, yeah,
Yep.
definitely.
So, and then everybody says to me, oh, water's our most limiting factor. And then I go, well, hold your breath till lunchtime or dinner time and see what's the most limiting factor in your life. So if you've got compacted soil, you can't get air in there. And the poor old microbes in there gasping, and he cannot live, he cannot thrive unless we can get that structure right, so we can get that gas exchange, get the air into the soil and make everything work. And then also the water infiltration and the water holding capacity. And if we don't have that structure, it ain't happening.
And it won't work. That's the point where you think, where won't it work? Even nutrients won't work in a compacted soil. I've certainly seen recently a multi-species side-by-side trial. One was in a really rich soil, one was in a compacted soil, and I think it was chemically compacted. I'm not sure if it was actually compacted by stocking rates, but you could see when you applied the nutrient, it nearly doubled the crop in the healthy soil. But when you applied the nutrient to the soil that was compacted, and you could tell it was compacted because it had a whole heap of nutrient deficiency colours, it didn't do a thing.
Yeah.
So even biostimulant, nutrient, anything, compacted soil, you've got a big limitation there.
Absolutely. And then you have to think to yourself, I'm always asking the what, why, and the how. So what's my problem? Compaction. Then we have to go and hunt for, why do we have it? Have we overstocked it? Have we driven over it too many times? Have we sprayed too many chemicals on it? Is there any biology in it? All those sorts of things.
Is there a soil chemistry compaction going on? Yeah, there's so many different things. Yeah. And
And then
sometimes people get offended if you suggest compaction, but because they always think, that they have had bad grazing management, but it can be a whole, range of different things that can cause compaction.
absolutely. And we're only just learning a lot of this stuff. So you can't beat yourself up over it or get annoyed by it, because it's what's happened. And like, we know now we can go out there and go, hey, this is what's going on. So let's fix it. Let's not get worried about it. And and let's just get on with the show and fix it. Because if you can fix that compaction issue, it's just such a game changer, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Anyway.
Oh, absolutely. And I will keep you going on the track of how you would recommend your philosophy in terms of a cropping system. But let's stay on compaction. What would be the first couple of recommendations you might make if it's compacted soil before you start working with any other type of inputs?
Sometimes it is just necessary to stick some steel in the ground. As much as we all don't want to do that and whatnot, sometimes you just have to do it. But it's what you do after that, I think, that's very important. And I would say go stick deep tap-rooted plants in. Once you've ripped it open, put big, deep tap-rooted plants in so that the roots can grow down into those openings that you've created with your steel, and start to build biology, get some carbon down there, create channels through the root system so it can work. And obviously deal with whatever, if it's a chemistry issue, deal with that chemistry issue as well at the same time.
So you may potentially do both.
Yeah.
You use a yeoman's plough as well as some lime and gypsum according to your soil test type of thing.
Yep. And I'd also look at putting out biology that's going to survive in that tough environment. So bacterias and things like that tend to work all right. So you could make a lactic acid bacteria and put a bit of food with it of some description. And the other thing I would be doing, I would drip, if I had a yeoman's, I would be putting a pipe down behind the yeoman's, and I would be putting down some Nutrisoil, some plant extracts, and maybe some lactic acid bacteria as a brew. And a food source, maybe a bit of molasses, a bit of fish, something like that.
Yeah. While we're on that subject of putting things together, I've got some really cool results that kind of show the power of adding these things together. So we did some plate testing on a cab, which is a bit like the lactic acid, what you just said there, if I'm correct. And there was 104 million colony forming units in 1 gram of that cab. And that's like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And we went, okay, well, what if we add, they added a P plus biofert, which is one of the recipes from David Hardwick's biofertilizer course, 5 litres of Nutrisoil and 70 litres of worm casting extract. And then that went up by 4 times. So it was 410 million. And we were like, wow, okay. And then we went, well, what about worm castings? So we, did we add? No. Okay. We compared it to worm casting solid on its own in a plate. And that was 2,100,000,000 microbe colony forming units of microbes in a gram.
Yeah.
So the power of adding all of these together is it's really exciting. And that's why I loved how KNF was doing it. They, in all those ancient years ago, they have been adding all these things together.
Absolutely. And I always love the analogy that in nature 1 + 1 never equals 2. Like 1 + 1 + 1 might equal 75. So it's when you stack things on top of each other, it's so important. So
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so I've asked about the compaction. Now we're at the point of sowing something. So you started talking about what you would do with the seed. So what do you do with seeds?
So in our program, we always put Nutrisoil on, a plant extract, either be an FPJ or something like TM Agriculture, and a bit of nutrient. So, and it does depend on the bank balance, but that's a pretty low-hanging fruit for someone to get started. And it's quite cost-effective to get started. And if we want to, we'll put in specific microbes to do a specific job. So to get phosphorus, or if we know that we've got a soil that has rhizoctonia, we might put in something that will help with that, or whatever that might be. So that's generally what we do as a seed treatment.
Yeah, okay. So there are specific microbes for solubilizing phosphorus. That's one of the products that I know of is P release.
Yep.
So that's one you could add. So you've got your diversity of microbes in Nutrisoil. You've got your specific microbes. And I like that specific microbe addition as well, especially for people who are transitioning off high synthetic phosphorus,
Yep.
because you really want those phosphorus solubilizing microbes to be using all the phosphorus that you've added there. And then you've got your plant extract. So that has your hormones and signaling products in it.
Yep.
And then you've got Nutrisoil, which has the diversity, plus it has all of those things complexed in it. It has the signaling products and the hormones and the enzymes in it. So it's quite a complete package there with your nutrients as well.
Yep. And that's what we're looking for. And it's diversity as well. Like, you're putting all that diversity together. And as you know, when you put diversity together, things just seem to work a bit better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's in life too, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yep.
So you've treated the seed. What about do you recommend a mixture of granular and foliar, or are you all foliar nutrition and biology? What's your next flavor?
So with the soil inputs, as far as fertilizers go, if we need to put it out, we will. And depending on where the farmer is at that stage. So we have a product called Chick Phos that we can put out, but we can also get that made with, it's 45% soft rock phosphate and composted chicken manure. So you get carbon, calcium, phosphorus, potassium, nitrogen in it. But if you're just starting out, we might be able to put, say, an MAP in it instead of the soft rock phosphate. So we're weaning off it, but still putting some good stuff in. And we can treat that with biology as well, because we've got a product that protects the biology when we put it on that sort of fertilizer. Or we might use a soft rock phosphate or a guano or something, whatever's most cost effective and works best for that job. But we try our best to stay away from soluble fertilizers, because they are probably one of the more damaging things to our biological system.
What if someone is using high synthetic fertilizers when they come to you? What's your progression there?
So pretty comfortable. We can go 10 to 20% down each in the first year, and then each year for a couple of years after that, we'll take another 10% out of that soluble fertilizer, and then we'll reassess. We'll see where we're at. We'll keep testing and see what's going on. Because a lot of these products, these natural products, like your rock phosphates and things like that, they're not going to work as well in a dead soil. We need to build up that microbial living soil to make them work really efficiently. And then by getting them to work efficiently, we put less out.
Yeah. Yeah. How long do you think that transition can be? Like, what from the longest transition to the quickest transition? What's in between?
I think anywhere from 2 to 5 or 6 years is the time. Anybody who just goes out there and just wants to wipe that transition in one go is probably going to run into a bit of trouble. I've seen it work, don't get me wrong, but as I get older, I get more risk adverse, and I would rather do a little bit at a time and find our thresholds and work on and each level ask our what, why, and how, and work out what our issues are, what our goals are, and then work towards those.
All right. What about your foliar application?
So foliar, it comes down to where the farmer wants to go as well. So transitioning, I would just probably use a normal everyday NPK trace element type fertilizer, but I'd always put it with biology, something like Nutrisoil. And some farmers are happy to stay at that point. And then as we move forward, we'll start to transition into more natural stuff, maybe liquid guano, or even then we could go back to the KNF stuff, the fermented plant juices and water-soluble calcium and amino acids and those sorts of things, but always putting them out with biology, like with something like Nutrisoil.
That would be like what percentage of people would get in cropping down to that very natural state of KNF? Like in your percentage of people that you work with, are they still using some NPK applications?
So we've got some people who are all the way away, have moved all the way away from solid fertilizer, but we still test on a reasonably regular basis just to make sure that the soil the soil levels are good, because if your soil levels aren't reasonable, all the foliars in the world are really going to struggle. So you still need to deal with it. I couldn't run the spray rig fast enough, I wouldn't think, to especially some of these bigger crops like your corns and things like that in Australian soils. But we've got some farmers that just use a bit of foliar, and we've got some farmers that don't use anything really. I've got a dairy farmer. I think he just does it because it makes him feel better. But he's putting out about 5 kilos of dissolved urea a hectare, some trace elements and biology, and he grows a lot of grass and a lot of cropping doing that.
What do you think his success? Why has he been successful in doing that?
He's been very persistent. He's been doing it for 20 years for a start. He's got livestock in his system, which I think is very beneficial. And grazing in the dairy system, done the way he does it, it's very, very effective at helping with your soil and improving that. And he's tried a lot of things. And the other thing was he had to do it because in the dairy industry, when he was going through it, they had deregulation, family deaths, all these things had happened. So they had to find another way.
The products that you make yourself, like your KNF, your biofats, how time consuming are they?
Look, they're not that time consuming, but they are another job to do. So, and it's probably more that you have to be persistent while you're making them. Like they're not something that you just go out, spend an hour, and I've made enough for the year. It takes, like, to make a good IMO takes 16 weeks. To make a good FPJ takes 7 or 8 days, and to make a OHN takes 16 weeks. A little bit every day. So it does eat some time up, but it's not that much that you can't do it. So
What about the shelf life of them? I mean, we've been doing some shelf life testing lately, but what about these types of products?
So once you've made them, they're pretty good. Like I always say to people, probably use them within a year. But I have got a IMO2 that I've got in the cupboard, and I looked at it under the microscope a few weeks ago, and I made it like 4 or 5 years ago, and it's still pretty good. So they do last. And I know you did some testing on Nutrisoil, and what did your testing come back up with?
Yeah, so we were really surprised. We always said, use it within 2 years. Make sure you keep it out of the sun. Make sure you open the lid and shut it again so the microbes had gas exchange and oxygen to breathe. But we sent it away to microbe labs recently, and they said after, I think it was a 12-week test, that they were able to work out its shelf life with. and it's its own ecosystem. So it has food in there, and then the microbes consume each other with like little cannibals, which is food, decay, live and die, and breed again. So sometimes the fungi is higher and sometimes the bacteria is higher. But then when it goes out into a actual if you put food sources with it, when you mix it, if it goes out onto a soil, those microbes can reactivate again. And the enzymes and the amino acids, they just keep recycling. So, it would be a good idea to try and do a shelf life testing on those. I know if we add, we've got a fine balance of what we add to the final worm liquid. We have tried to add seaweed with it, and it's gone, uh
Rancid.
yes, so anaerobic. There is a funny story when we were doing it. We added seaweed to it, and then we were going to leave it for 6 months and then send it away to microbe labs, for testing, and the office started smelling, and I was like, "Oh, this stinks," all these guys I'm working with open the doors, and then eventually we worked out it was coming from this container where we had added a seaweed to the worm liquid, and they were like, "I think it's coming from there because we have these, lids that have gas can
Yeah,
come
the
out."
breathable lids. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was just, like, pumping out this stench, and then when we opened it, oh, it was so disgusting. So if any biological product that you open smells like flatulence or or something really off like rotten eggs, do not use it. It has gone anaerobic. So yeah, and also we've done testing with nutrients as well. So if you add nutrients to it, especially trace elements, they got a pretty the microbes have a pretty low tolerance to them. So we always say use it, within the day or within 16 hours. I would love to have a product where I could have it all together. So, if you had Nutrisol with nitrogen and trace elements in it, worm liquid and food, which is what we're saying at the end of the day on farm, added food source like your humic, fulvic, fish, seaweed, then add your microbes like or Nutrisol and your biostimulants like a plant extract, and then add your nutrients. Imagine if we had a product with that you could sell and it was that easy, but unfortunately it isn't.
Yeah, no, I know, and that's why KNF, you make like 9 separate solutions, and then you put them together just as you're going to use them, or within 36 hours of when you're going to use them. You can't put them together and walk away for a month and come back and have them work, because it just doesn't work. And
No.
yeah, it would be great if we could have one of those products. And I do see some people advertising that they've got them, but I just know, that they're not probably as efficient as they could be.
Well, especially nutrients. So the food source, like the seaweed or the fish, that can make it go anaerobic, but the nutrients can slide under the radar. Like if you add urea to it or trace elements to it, the microbes actually either die or they become extremely unbalanced. So you don't have that diversity of microbes in there. So sometimes it might not smell, it might smell like urea or something. Like if anything's like 12% in a biological product, the synthetic N has been added. Like I think amino acids, you you can get to maybe, I don't know, what, like
The,
8%?
hi-
What's blood and
the
bone?
highest amino acid I've seen, and we've considered bringing it into the country ourselves, is 15% nitrogen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but like we make an FAA, and it's about 3%, and we're only putting that out at, I think, about 200 to 300 mils a hectare.
Yeah.
But because it's an amino acid and it's taken up so well, it just seems to have an effect. You could go higher, but that's the rate that they talk about putting it out at.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, there are foliar uh, fertilizers that are 12%, 15%, 28%, the Ectol product, but
Yep.
they don't have life in them. They're chelated, which is fantastic, and you can chelate and tank mix these products, and I really like those products, but you can't add life in them.
No, that's right. And then that's why it's so important. It doesn't matter what you're spraying out. Even a herbicide, I'd still be putting biology with it to help buffer that, to make it work better, and to just keep that system ticking over.
Yeah, well, watch this space. We have just launched into some testing with Microbe Labs. It's a long-term test on adding Nutrisoil to herbicides. We know that fulvic works. We know that humic works. But we have had results where using Nutrisoil has made the fertilizer work better. Is it the microbes? Is it the plant growth promotants? Is it the humic and fulvic that is complexed in it? So we're not advertising that it does that yet until we get the results, but a strong possibility is that that's what it's doing. Or
Yep.
is it feeding the microbes in the soil whilst the chemical's working, or is it giving amino acids to the plant to the plants that are not selected to help keep growing while the chemical's working on the plants that have been targeted to kill?
Yeah, well, that'll be really interesting. But there is a lot of, like, I've seen a lot of anecdotal evidence out there of just people who are putting it with their herbicides or with their fertilizers, and it just works better almost every time. So
Yeah.
there'll be a reason for it, and hopefully you find that reason, because it'll be very interesting.
I know. I think it's peeling that glaze of an onion, though. Like, there's so many different tests you could do to try and work out what the function is, but we've committed to it, so we'll keep sharing what we know when we know.
Excellent. And that's what I like about Nutrisoil as a company. They actually tell you what they're doing, and I try really hard as a company as well. Like, if I make a product, I put on, and I tell everybody what it is. If you want to go and try and make that product, you go your hardest. But I just like the fact that we are trying to educate and tell people what are there, and we're not trying to protect anything really. We just want the industry to be better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people need to be testing things if they're selling things. There is a new biostimulant regulation coming out where you do have to have done some testing if you are labeling a product and selling it. Yeah, so we're watching that space too.
Yeah, right. Well, that'll be interesting.
Yeah. Well, look, that's been a great conversation. We've got a biological farming roundtable coming up in August at Nutrisoil, where you and I will be having similar talks on the day. So if anyone's interested, we'll put that in the show notes. You can come and ask all the questions that you were dying to ask while we're having this conversation. But we're also having David Hardwick at that event talking about the different testing methods of biology. And we've got Taryn Armstrong, who's going to be showing us some microscopy work. So, yeah, it should be a fun day. We've already got
I'm really looking forward to seeing the microscope stuff. So, yeah.
Yes, I'm trying to get Phil Lee there as well, because he's fantastic on the microscope. But he's actually been over in India. I believe he was in India. He's doing some fantastic work over there in regenerative farming, and it's really getting recognised. So hopefully he can get to our biological farming roundtable in August as well.
That'll be good to see Phil again.
Yeah. All right, Luke. Well, I know you need to get going. Thank you for your time today, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks for having me, and I hope everybody got something out of the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. See you.
See ya, bye.
Please follow the Biological Farming Roundtable podcast. Share it with your friends and networks. I'm Nakala and I work at Nutrisoil, a liquid biological fertiliser made from a big worm farm whose purpose is to empower farmers to produce life-enriching food.